Hey everybody, welcome back to another podcast, and today we're doing a podcast that we've been threatening to do for some time now.
It's been the nuclear option in our back pocket for a long time.
We're going to talk about Star versus the Forces of Evil, and counterintuitively, we're not talking about the new episodes that have just come out recently. We're talking about all the episodes because my co-host here has never seen the show.
Yeah, what do we look like? Some kind of bandwagoners jumping on when it's getting popular? I don't think so. We start from the beginning. We are honorable media watchers.
Honorable media watchers. Oh yeah. But you have yet to see the entire show. I've seen everything up to this point. And just real quick, because this is a sort of a show where it's mostly about like Adventure Time and also Steven Universe now. Like, some of you have probably never seen this show, and, well, don't go out and watch it just yet.
Yeah, you're gonna want to hear our expert opinions before you make your judgment on this one.
I mean, I like the show, but yes. I acknowledge it has some flaws.
Yes, some flaws. That's a very diplomatic way of putting it.
Yes, I mean, comparing it to other shows, like, if it's no Adventure Time, it's no Steven Universe. Even comparing it to, like, just the Disney shows, it's no Gravity Falls.
Yeah.
It's no Wander Over Yonder. It's none of those things.
It's no, Big Blue Bear in the Big Blue House. I forgot what that one was called.
That was Clifford.
Oh, yeah, what?
Clifford the Big Red Dog.
Clifford the Big Red Dog,
I don't think that's... Anyway, getting off topic. It's no Phineas... I mean, I didn't even actually like Phineas and Ferb.
Phineas and Ferb at least had some funny jokes.
I mean, yeah. But
once in a while.
It's just so boring.
Yeah, it was actually, it was actually really boring after about, like, 2 episodes.
Yeah. But anyway, that's not what we're talking about today.
That's not what we're talking about today. This isn't the Phineas and Ferb cast.
This is the Star versus the Forces of Evil podcast.
Alrighty, then. And for this episode, we're going from episode 1...
Yep.
All the way to episode, whatever it was.
Episode 15.
Episode 15.
Yeah.
Which is actually episode, it's actually episode 8. But, you know,
what are we going to do?
All
the episodes are back-to-back double
Yeah, they're double
episodes. But they're all separate 10-minute episodes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so this is an interesting show, I think, for many reasons.
Interesting, like a burning corpse you find on the side of the road.
And you know what? I actually kind of just want to hear your opinions first, seeing as you did try to watch the show, and stopped halfway or something. Not halfway.
Yeah, so halfway through the amount of episodes that we're gonna cover in this podcast.
Yeah, you didn't watch that far into it,
no,
and you stopped because you thought it was awful.
Yeah.
Obviously, I thought it was good enough that I kept watching until it got good, in my opinion.
All right. Yeah.
Though whether you'll change your mind on it remains to be seen.
This is
But overall, on this cabal of episodes, what would you say your opinion is so far?
So far on the episodes as a whole, extremely disappointed. Very boring, not funny at all. I don't think I even found like one joke that was like really genuinely funny that made me laugh, which is a big problem because the show doesn't have anything else going for it. The fight scenes are tepid and lack any kind of momentum or impact. Let's see, the characters are completely unlikable and I hate them all.
Ah, come on.
Let's see, what else is there? The theme song is horrible. It literally hurts my ears to listen to this theme song. It's like horrible. Jeez. Man, who greenlit this theme song? Jeez. But we can get into all that a little bit later once we get to the specific examples of what I'm talking about. Although, now that I think about it, since it's at the beginning of every episode, I would like to talk about the theme song a little bit.
You know what? Go ahead. I want to combat some of your points because I don't think I disagree with you on a lot of things you said.
I think these are very general statements. I think we should go through the episodes a little bit so I can give specific examples because you're just going to be like, well, I don't think the characters are bad. Well, I do. But if we have specific examples, we can actually talk about
just
them.
real quick as my own general thing before you get into the theme song.
Yeah.
I do agree that the first season, especially the first half of the first season, is very much not good.
Mm-hmm.
It has some things that I do like that obviously kept me watching the show, and because obviously I didn't just quit it.
Clearly.
And like, you know, it introduces it is like, if you remember the first season of Steven Universe, it's all about introducing the new, for the first half of that season, it's all about just introducing the characters. Where in this case, it is sort of the same thing, but 75% of these characters are not important.
Yeah. So here's the problem: is that the first half of Steven Universe is great.
It is really
I love
great.
it.
Yeah.
It's like, so good. I love the first half of Steven Universe.
Yeah, but I'm not comparing those two.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong.
As you've mentioned before.
But what I'm saying is it's going for a very similar thing.
Yeah.
But like Steven Universe, once like the main narrative does get going a little later on,
I kind of figured that.
I think you'll get a little bit more into it. But,
by the end, I was.
But that's the end of my sort of general opinions. Let's get into your specific opinions about the theme song.
So real quick, like I don't want to spend too much time on the theme song because obviously it's not a huge deal. But oh man, it's so annoying. Whoever is singing this theme song is singing it in the most obnoxious monotone possible. Like, things are gonna get a little weird. Things are gonna get a little wild. It's what are you doing? What are you doing? Like, oh man, it's so annoying. It's like buzzing my ears. Like, oh, why? Can you like change the tone of your voice for one of the words, please? Any of them? Also, and it's also horrible in the sense that it sets the tone perfectly actually for the show. Now that I think about it, because it's like this low random OMG. Can't believe it, so quirky type of thing, and I hate it. And that's kind of what I just wanted to mention the monotone on that, because jeez, it's bad. Gonna have a good time!
Okay.
Gotcha.
Jeez. Don't need to
It's like squawking.
Yeah. Which leads us right into the very first episode of Star vs. the Forces of Evil, where we're introduced to the concept and our two main characters.
Yes.
We got Star, who is a magical princess from another dimension. And we got Marco, who is the guy.
Who is a guy.
And this is, like, obviously I do like the show, but this is my note here is basically, they've established this amazing dynamic where we have one character who is interesting and one character who is boring.
Yeah.
And that is the dynamic between them. It's just, like, literally being boring is Marco's defining character trait in this episode.
It's just such a horrible introduction, like a horrible hook to these characters. Like, how would you expect anybody to watch past this first episode when like one of your main two characters is the worst character ever? So Marco is a straight A student who can fight with karate and also is a loner who only has two friends. So he's basically the biggest Gary Stu in the whole universe. Like, I don't understand. Like, I don't understand why he's like... So it's introduced in this episode that he only has two friends for some reason. And they're like the two most, like... They're the two outcasts.
We'll get into the friends.
It's like... Yeah, it's like...
They're all...
But Marco is clearly like the odd one out here. It's like, why is Marco an outcast? He has no reason to be... It's just his own, like, self-imposed, like, isolation that makes him this freak. But interestingly, because he self-imposes isolation, it makes him a real freak. But only because he chose it. And I hate him.
Marco, like, in a weird way, reminds me a lot of the character Mako from Avatar, The Legend of Korra. As they're both, like, these weird blank slates of characters.
Yeah, I can kind of see that.
But, like, and and just the thing about Marco is that he just doesn't have any, like, just think about Marco. I was like, all right, what is Marco like? And I got nothing.
Yeah, so this episode also, complete contradictions of itself constantly with the characters. So Marco's one character trait that is introduced here that isn't his grades or his karate is that he's like risk avoidant or something. He's like too safe, which
is dropped immediately.
It's dropped. It's never ever picked up again. Like
that's not a part
apparently
of his
all he
character
needed
at
to do was like kill some monsters real quick, and that was all he needed to get over it.
Yeah, it's just Marco is a very weird thing.
Yeah,
and I'm going to get into Marco a little bit when we talk about like the original pitch for this show, because that's kind of interesting, and I think that might have something to do with what we ended up with. But I think that's enough about Marco. Let's talk about our other main character.
Yeah, let's talk about
who
Star.
I do like a lot. I like the introduction of Star. I think she's, she's peppy. She's got like that sort of energy that is the life of the show, basically.
Yeah.
She's fun.
So, so from the beginning, I think I found Star to be extremely annoying and not very interesting. I hated her less and less as I watched the episodes, mostly just because I was hating a bunch of other stuff. But Star isn't as annoying in the later episodes as she is in the first episode, where she's just like brain damaged, basically. So yeah, another running current through the show is that Star is literally brain damaged, because like they take this like fish out of water type joke, and they just run it into the ground to the point where Star is literally just brain dead.
I'm going to disagree with you on that, because I think at least once they do a really good joke with the whole fish out of water thing. Mm. And I think you already know what I'm talking about. I really like that episode.
Maybe I do.
But like, I'm going to say I just like her. I don't know. She just had that. She just did it for me, I guess.
Oh. Yeah, so while we're on the first episode, I should get to the art style of the show, which I find completely hideous, and I don't like looking at it for extended periods of time because nothing looks good ever. The animation is extremely like flashy, like you can like almost like see the flash animation happening before your eyes. Like most of the movements look like people are being dragged across the screen. It like all of like the character designs are like these weird, like horrific, like giant mouths. Like they look like they were drawn by like a 10-year-old. Like especially like the teeth. The teeth have like weirdly too much detail in them, so you can see like every individual tooth, and it's just like when they smile or open their mouth, it's like it looks like they've got like this huge open maw, and it looks disgusting. Especially Star. Like Star, the biggest hurdle for me liking her is the fact that I hate her character design so much. Like Marco has the benefit of having a character design that's extremely boring and at least isn't too offensive.
What don't you like about Star's character design? I think the art style in general is a thing you will get used to.
Maybe.
Because I honestly don't think it's that. It's not like I'm not looking at it and I was like, these characters, they're so inspired. But, like, I'm not thinking, this is just ugly. And there are some, in the first episode especially, I think some of the animation, it's better than the rest of the episodes.
Right. And the animation only a little bit bothers me a little bit more, because there are some episodes where I think the animation spikes for some reason, and it actually looks good once in a while.
That's definitely true. There are, like, bits of these shows that are like, and we tried on this
Yeah,
part.
exactly. It's, like, disorienting. It's like, whoa. What's happening? Like, why is everybody moving like they actually, like, can move in real life? Yeah.
And I feel like we get a lot of those moments in this first episode, though, where, like, they do put some effort into it.
The first episode.
Yeah, but as the show goes on, they do, like, the animation is sort of very simple.
Okay. Well, one quick thing about, because you asked me why I don't like Star's character design. So, it's the definition of way, way too busy. Like, there's just too much stuff going on. You've got giant blonde hair, little devil horns, hearts on her cheeks, and then like this like mishmash of clothes that make no sense together and just look hideous. And also her wand is also hideous, and I like every single other wand design that is shown in the series way more than Star's wand design.
Design shown in the series.
There's about three.
Yeah, I forgot about
there's approximately 3 other wand designs that you get to see in the show. One of them is the original one before she gets it at the very beginning.
Mom's wand.
Well, the 2 of them is Ludo's wand design, which is way cooler.
More like Lobster wand design. Yeah.
Well, I think Ludo imagines.
Oh yeah, he has like an imaginary one. I forgot about that.
And then there's the Lobster one, which also looks way better.
like, I will spoil something for you. The wand does get a redesign.
Oh, well, that's good. Because
that's one of the...
Man, it looks bad.
It looks like that bad.
It looks like a giant baby rattle.
It does look like a giant... I think that's intentional. I think it intentionally looks like a giant baby rattle.
Well, look, if you intentionally look bad, I hate to break this to you, but you still look horrible. All right, we've spent a lot of time on this first episode. Maybe we should...
like I said, the art, I don't have as much problem with the art as you do. I think it looks fine for what it is. It doesn't, like, blow me away by any stretch of the imagination, but it's fine.
It bothered me because it's about the same animation, like, quality, I guess, of, like, something like Steven Universe. Because they both, like, go from Flash and stuff, right?
Well,
but it's like
Flash,
the design and, like, the aesthetic of all the characters and backgrounds in Steven Universe are just so much better that it doesn't even really matter because it's just a more appealing thing to look at.
Yeah. Steven Universe is better than the show in all aspects.
Sorry,
I'm not going to argue with that.
Yeah, I might be comparing things to Steven Universe a little bit. I'll try to curb that a little bit as we go on.
There's no comparison really. But I think we're gonna move on to the next episode.
Do we want to? First episode ends. Ludo comes, tries to steal Marco.
Right, we forgot to introduce our the villain of the piece.
I mentioned Ludo before.
Ludo, who is a tiny monster bird guy who's trying to steal Star's wand so he can take over the world. Yeah, that's his entire thing at the moment.
So fascinating. Real great villain here.
We'll get to Ludo. He does. We'll get to that.
Yeah, but this is where we learn that Marco has incredible karate powers.
Yep.
And
he's so good at karate that he can fight these monsters.
Yep.
But these monsters just suck. They're
terrible. The monsters just suck. Which is another point. Which is that at no point in any time in any of these episodes does Ludo come across as a credible threat to anything.
Yeah, but he is. I'm going to say this, I'm going to spoil this. He's not supposed to come off as a credible threat in any way. He's not intended as a threatening villain.
Alright. Well, the thing is, if the villain isn't threatening and he shows up like every single episode, it just means he's annoying, alright?
He does show up.
Whatever.
Alright, yeah. But yeah, basically what happens in this episode, who cares? Star comes to Earth. That's it.
Yeah, that's literally all that's
the name of the episode and that's what happens.
Star comes to Earth. Marco proves himself to be a horrible person, and that's pretty much it.
Okay, moving right along, we got the next episode where we're introduced to another character, the Floating Ponyhead.
Oh yes, Floating Ponyhead. Okay, the only character I hate more than Marco.
So this is a weird thing, because I don't like Ponyhead either, but like I was surprised to find that I liked her more earlier on in the show.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, she comes back later and she's worse.
She comes back later and she's a little worse.
Can't wait for that.
And Ponyhead's another character who I want to get into when we talk about the original concept for this show, because there's an interesting thing about that. But like for the most part, it's just this sort of like, what's the term? Valley girl or sort of persona. Valley. But it's a floating
girl.
Yeah. But the joke is it's a floating unicorn head.
Yeah.
And that's
lol, so random.
But I think it does actually get good when you meet her dad, who is just a giant floating unicorn head.
The giant unicorn head, I mean...
He's like...
It's okay.
The dad is actually legitimately funny in this episode to me.
I don't know about legitimately funny.
He's like...
It might be slightly chuckle-worthy.
He has this line at the end, he's like, kids... You have them, and then you don't want them around, and then he leaves. And that's just his line.
I mean, for me, that just sort of like reinforces the point that Ponyhead is completely unlikable, and there's no reason that Star would ever be her friend. That doesn't make any. But so for one, Star's friendship with Ponyhead doesn't make any sense because Ponyhead is like a horrible person, and two. This is the first thing of, like, forced friendship between Star and Marco. Like, this is episode 2, and Star's... And they're best... Star's like, let me go grab Marco! And it's like, what? Why?
But that's the sort of, like...
Are we just supposed to assume that she's been, like, hanging out in his house for, like, a month now, and they've gotten to know each other?
But that's sort of like a... I don't know. young kid thing. It's
Yeah,
like, oh yeah, you're
whatever.
my best friend now, and that's how it works.
Another reason why I hate Star, she's got the emotional maturity of a 6-year-old.
She does. That is true.
All right, so Ponyhead introduces the concept of dimensional scissors.
Yeah, dimensional scissors, which they use to go to different dimensions. There is actually an origin of how Ponyhead got those dimensional scissors that comes up later and is kind of funny.
All right, whatever.
But that's a lot later.
I won't worry about that. So
don't need to worry about that.
I want to talk a little bit about dimensional scissors in that,
specifically? Okay.
Well, specifically, yeah, because they're kind of like a big deal almost, because they're sort of like how the plot happens in most of the show, in most of the episodes.
Yeah.
So I would like to say that they're extremely lazy, and they're like a completely weird plot device that like it's just like a really weird plot device, because like you just cut the air and you go somewhere. Well, yeah. How do you determine where you go? No one knows. You just end up where you need to be.
You know. Secondly, isn't the first time we've seen them. Like, we saw them in the first episode when Star first.
Yeah, but they weren't mentioned.
Yeah, but there was these scissors that they had.
Whatever.
But yeah, the dimensional. I don't know. I mean,
I just think it's a poorly thought out plot device, because there doesn't seem to be much thought going into them.
Well, there is some thought going into them, and that goes into the origin of the scissors. Which we don't get to for a while.
Yeah, I'll have to just take your word on that.
Yeah, we don't get into the origin of the dimensional scissors for a while.
It is basically Rick's portal gun from Rick and Morty, except that there's no way to determine where the portal goes. Like at least with the portal gun, you could see him go like beep boop beep. I'm going this place. Like, that didn't make anything.
They just decide where they want to go, and they cut the flare.
It's practically the same thing. Like they just end up wherever they need to be. But at least with the portal gun, there's like a mechanism.
It's just magic, man.
It's just magic. Great.
and all the portals the portals have a different design depending on where they're going. Like each place has like a different design portal.
So you just keep cutting holes until you find the design that you want.
Anyway, moving on. Episode 3 is Matchmaker. We don't want to talk. I don't think we need to talk about this episode that much. It's not a whole lot happens.
Not a whole lot happens. Matchmaker. Oh yes, this one. Where retrieving it from my brain.
It's the one where the teacher gets turned into a troll. And there is one. The thing I like about this is that the teacher just is a troll for the rest of the series now.
It's horrible. She has been horrifically disfigured by Star to never recover ever.
Yep,
I guess because she almost got laid as the monster form, she's okay with it now.
Yeah, I guess that's fine now.
She's like, well, I mean, I never got laid as a human form, so I mean, I got a little bit closer.
Yeah. But nothing happened. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but literally nothing happens except for the standard, like the patented, trademarked punch-up between Star and Marco and the monsters, which look exactly, which look exactly the same each and every time.
Yeah, and they're not very interesting
and
to
they're
watch.
Probably the most boring part of the episodes, because it's just like another episode of blah, blah, fight, and it's like, great.
Yeah. And, we also are introduced to this one character who's very contentious in the Star was supposed to be Jackie Thomas.
Jackie Thomas,
the Marco's crush. It's really funny with some of the people who hate this character.
This is like the coolest character in the whole series. I like this character more than anybody else.
She's like said literally 3 words.
Yeah, she said. I know, that's what makes her so great. She said 3 words, and she's kind of like she's not interested in Marco, so she's sort of got a lot in common with me, actually.
Unfortunately, you're gonna have to take that back soon.
I'm gonna have to. I figured, because there's no way they just introduced this. But for now, for these episodes at least, I can pretend that it's cool.
All right, moving right along. That's all that
nothing
happens in that.
Yeah.
episode.
So in case you haven't noticed, we're kind of like
we're not going to spend super long on each of these episodes, because the way I've decided to divide these episodes up for us to watch in this sort of podcast series is basically like how much happens in each section of episodes, basically.
Yeah.
So we're going to be covering season 1 in about 2 episodes of the podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're doing the first half of the season. We're going to do the second half of the season next time. Season 2 will probably take more episodes to cover, because there's more stuff that happens.
There's more stuff that goes on.
Yeah. Now, moving right along, we have the episode I actually thought was funny, School Spirit.
Oh no, I hated this episode. This was the worst episode ever.
You didn't think the joke with Star, like, going to battle was funny
that was horrible.
I thought it was funny. When she was, like at the trophy case, looking at all the students and, like, crying, like, all these people who died. I thought that was pretty funny.
It's just, like, this is just the worst. This is the one I almost hated this episode more than the others because it's such, like, a boring joke. Like, it's like, oh, lol, she doesn't get it. She just misunderstood it. Everyone's using violent terms to describe it, so she just doesn't know. But it's like, to anybody, like, it's so obvious. You're just brain dead, Star. There's people in the stands watching. You've never seen anybody die in your whole life. Like, why would Star assume that they're getting killed when this is, like, the least violent show in the whole universe?
I don't know. It starts out with, like, a bunch of people. Like, there's literally a fight every single episode.
Yeah, but no one ever dies.
Of course not. I do like how they just sort of, like, all pitifully get up and walk away at the end of every fight.
Great. You know, Star, you could save yourself a lot of trouble by, like, Wandy drop a huge car on all these people, and you just have a lot of problems solved. But no, I guess, you know, you just gotta feel... You know, Star's actually a really horrible person. She just needs to feel superior to these monsters, which we will find out later that she's a huge racist.
I'm glad you brought that up, but we'll get to that later.
We will get to that later.
Yeah, but I think this episode has some good jokes. Like, it has this... This is the first episode where Marco's friends are part of it a lot.
Yeah.
And Marco's friends are the two single worst characters in this entire show.
Yeah.
And they die off very quickly in the show.
Thank goodness.
So the writers are in agreement with us on this.
Yeah,
Those characters are terrible.
Maybe this has to do with the origin of the show, and, like, they didn't want these characters to be in there, but the studio forced them to put, like, two dumb friend characters.
That's another thing I want to talk about, is the sort of Disneyifying of some ideas in this show that I think might not be the creator's fault. Like, the show's still bad because of it, but I can see some weird things happen that feel like the mouse has intervened.
Yeah, the mouse has intervened.
The mouse has come down from above.
Or at least whatever sub-tendril of the mouse that controls Disney Kids TV.
Yeah. But anyway, I liked this episode, except for the parts that had Marco.
Yeah, those were horrible.
And his friends. That was just boring. And then they'd cut to Star doing something that I thought was funny, but then they'd cut back to Marco just being boring.
Yeah.
And that was basically the whole episode.
Oh yeah. So one of the problems I have with this whole series actually is that the jokes make no logical sense. Like, so the joke at the end is like, oh, Star booby trapped the field, and everybody just keeps playing on this field that obviously has giant landmines in it, and nobody can apparently see the giant landmines.
That is some
Why?
That's some pretty cartoon logic. Just, you know, oh, who cares? And that's
so. Here's the thing, though.
I agree. That is pretty dumb.
I don't buy that. That's so. It's true. It's true that it's cartoon logic, and, you know, everything goes. But the consequence of that is that it's not funny.
Well, I guess we'll just have to agree to disagree. I thought some of it was funny.
Nah.
Anyway, we're going to move right along because we have a lot of episodes.
Because whether or not you thought it was funny, nothing happens in this episode.
Nothing happens in this episode. Like, again, this is just an episode that exists for the sake of having episodes in the show. Having a wacky fish out of water. Which is a lot of episodes in the first season. It's just, we need an episode. Here's the episode.
Because apparently they don't have any non-lethal sports in Muni, apparently.
Apparently not. Now, next we get to Monster Arm, which is another episode
Monster Arm. This was one of the episodes that I hated a little less.
Alright, I'll take it.
Yeah,
I'll take it.
I mean, it had some things that I had some problems with. Especially, there's like one part of it that I had a really big problem with. But other than that, you know, it was okay, I guess. I like the monster arm. It's pretty cool. I like the idea of having a giant tentacle that can move on its own.
All right. In this sense, so this is some of my favorite sort of visual humor. Is like just Marco like sitting down at the table with this blank look on his face as his arm just
that's pretty funny.
Just slaps everything and destroys everything and like dumps food in his face. I thought that was pretty good.
I mean, yeah, like it doesn't make any sense, but it is pretty funny. Like, I mean, not in the sense as like, oh, they couldn't have the monster arm. That's not possible. I mean, in the sense that why is his arm moving on its own and like beating the crap out of him? Like, that doesn't make any sense. But you know what? It's okay. This is at least it is some funny visual humor. So I'll let this one go.
It's just the deadpan stare that he has.
Yeah. So the plot of this episode is that Star messes up again, gives Marco a giant monster tentacle arm. And the whole episode is Star's trying to fix it, and then Marco sort of like comes to like the monster arm, but it's also sort of corrupting
because
him.
It's like making him popular.
Yeah, because it like makes him popular somehow because he beats up a bully with it.
Well, it's more like the arm just beats up the bully himself,
the
and like picks up the little kid on its own.
Yeah, exactly. So and then the big twist at the end is that the arm is evil
and alive
and like talks to him. Which is it's a little weird, but you know, okay, I can buy it. Yep. So the big issue here, I think, that I had.
What is your big issue?
Okay, so what was it? It was like, yeah, it was. I think it's the way that Star and Marco talk about the arm. It's like, so Star is like, man, I think that arm's a bad influence on you. But there's no evidence that it is a bad influence on him at this point.
He's like acting all angry now.
When?
Like when he's like, maybe you. He has that little episode where in the room where he's like, I don't want to get rid of the arm.
Yeah,
that's pretty much.
But that makes perfect sense. That's not like weird. Star's just being an idiot. Yeah, like there's no. The arm just saved a guy from a bully. Like why wouldn't you be like, hey, maybe this arm's pretty good actually? Like, why wouldn't you say that? Like, that's perfectly logical. And then Star's like, no, this is clearly evil. I gotta save you. And then Marco makes the perfectly valid point that Star is perfectly happy to cheat and lie with her magic when it benefits her. But when Marco's about to do it, now it's a problem. And that's a perfectly valid point against Star, who is incredibly selfish.
Okay.
And has no sense of honor.
All right, but that's mean because... One of the things I like about this episode is Star, like, staying up all night, trying to, like, perfect this arm repair spell, this return arm to normal spell, like, on a bunch of different potted plants.
Yeah, let's ignore the fact that magic makes no sense in this universe. And it's just, like, practicing magic doesn't really make sense since all she's doing is saying words.
Yeah, we do get into that later.
What is she doing, like, saying the words better?
We do get into the mechanics of magic a little bit later.
Thank goodness. I can't wait till we go into extreme detail and I don't care anymore.
But at the time, I think it is kind of a neat character thing for Star. She like stays up all night. She's trying to perfect this spell over and over again, and I really like that. Yeah. You know, they have the big fight at the end where the arm is like beating him up.
Yeah.
Well, first the arm beats up this tiny kid.
Yeah, which, you know, is pretty funny, I guess. I mean, I like seeing small children get hurt, so it's all good for me.
And then, like, you know, they're just having a fight. He's just having a fight with his own arm. And Star zaps it and turns back to normal.
Yep.
And it says it'll be back.
Yeah, it says it'll be back, which, you know, probably won't happen, but, you know, whatever.
We'll get to there.
Yeah. Next episode. This episode was above average for Star vs. Force of Evil. I'd still give it like a 4.
Out of
10.
4? Oh. I like this episode. Anyway, but we're moving right along. The other exchange student, which is where...
Oh my God. This episode.
This is the episode where we get into some of the weird SpongeBob qualities of the first half of this show. Where, like, characters will just be different depending on the episode.
Yeah.
To make the joke work.
Yeah, so in this episode, Gustav comes back to the Diaz household because he was their previous transfer exchange student.
Yeah, that is a little aspect I like. It's like, yeah, we have tons of transfer exchange students. So it's not like... So, because, like, in the first episode, it's kind of like, oh, it just so happens that Star, like... lives at Marco's house now after meeting him at school. What a coincidence. But then they like say, oh, that's just a thing that this family likes to do. They have tons of exchange students.
Yeah, I can buy that as a cool little detail. Like, it makes sense that...
You sound very reluctant.
Well, I mean, it's just like, it doesn't matter at all. So it's like...
Yeah, I mean, sure.
Like, you know, if they had if she had just ended up there by chance, it could have been a million other things. But okay, whatever.
Anyway.
So anyway, Gustav comes in. And he's the previous student, and Star's instantly suspicious.
Yes, she's like
instantly suspicious, despite him doing nothing wrong.
Despite like the ending theme song, she's like, "Oh, a stranger, just a friend you haven't met." But like, obviously, this person does not fall into that for no particular reason.
Yeah, no particular.
She's like really emotionally needy in this episode.
Yeah,
she's like upset that these people aren't throwing parties for her
every single day.
It's like, oh, how dare you stop throwing a party for her?
How dare you? Yeah.
And it's really bizarre because that doesn't seem like a very Star thing.
Yeah, it doesn't make any. It's completely out of character.
Yeah, pretty much.
So then after which, Star. I mean, so she does have one reason to be suspicious of him is that he had some like language learning books in his bag because he claims to be from Scandinavia. So here's another.
I thought it was Sweden.
No, he literally said. I rewatched that. He literally says Scandinavia as the country Scandinavia.
Whatever.
So here's another problem with this episode is that at the end of the episode it's revealed that Gustav is actually not from Scandinavia. He's actually lying and he's whatever.
He's just.
But the point is, why doesn't anybody in the Diaz family know this? How could anybody be this stupid? Marco's got A's. How does he not know that Scandinavia isn't a country? Like, so, the joke is, like, he tells Star, like, oh, do you know about Europe? And she's like, no.
She's like, I know it's a place.
Yeah, I know it's a place. He's like, oh, Scandinavia is a wonderful place. You get a penguin and such. And it's just like...
I'm glad you remember that specific joke.
Great.
I'm glad you
I remembered it because I hated it so much. But, and then, so Marco, the A student, doesn't notice anything weird about this. He's just never heard of Europe before either.
Yeah, like I said, it's just that SpongeBob thing where it's like, oh, everybody is exactly what they need to be for this episode, for this joke to work.
Yeah,
unquote.
Exactly.
And it's another boring episode that's not important.
Yeah, and that's another problem with this, that it's extremely boring. It's just like...
I mean, despite the fact of what I just said about how they just manipulate it, it did have, like, the thing with Star, like, spying on him and, like, having, like, all these things up on the wall and going insane. It's kind of funny to me. But it wasn't that good. It wasn't good enough to justify the whole thing.
It was just such a generic representation of, like, being paranoid and going insane from paranoia. Like, nothing was original about how they did it. Like, like, literally all of the cartoon tropes, like, cliches. Like, you're looking at him through binoculars through the, And
then, like, looking up at the monster that's spying on him.
Looking up at the monster spying at her. Pinning things together with the red lines. Like, none of this is at all original or funny.
So, about the thing at the end, where it is...
Yeah, and there's a little bit of a twist at the end.
Where she thinks... he's going to eat the Diaz's.
Yeah, like turn them into meatballs or something.
And then, like, you pointed this out a long time ago, and it's the thing that sort of stuck with me is, like, we don't know if it's left ambiguous if that was actually his plan.
So at the end, it's like, oh, Star learns her lesson, you have to trust people. Like,
Not
wasn't...
really.
No, wait, I'm still going. So you learned your lesson, gotta trust people, you don't want to judge people at first sight or whatever. But then at the end, it turns out he is like a serial liar and like con artist who like goes to different people's houses pretending to be different things for some reason. Because as it turns out, his dream that he tells Star, like, start a restaurant or whatever in his hometown, is a complete lie.
I mean, is it a lie?
Why didn't he just go back there and do it now?
I don't know. That's the weird thing about this character. He's like, he has his dream, but like, I have no idea how what he's doing has anything to do with that.
He's like, I'll make my town happy by starting a restaurant there. It's like, okay, and then at the end, so the problem is like it's like it shows the audience him acting suspicious when nobody else is around. So we know that he's suspicious. Yeah, but like... So it feels like he was actually about to kill those people.
I mean, yeah. It's just the not getting from A to B on this whole... Like, he wants to open a restaurant, so he pretends to be an exchange
Yeah.
student. I'm not sure how we're getting from part A of this plane to part B.
Yeah,
of this
is he
plane.
just like homeless and he needs a place to stay while he like builds up money or something?
I don't know.
Yeah, nothing makes any sense in this episode.
It's just-
Gustav is really annoying and I hate him.
He never appears again.
Yeah.
He's just a one-off.
Thank goodness.
And with that, we're moving right along.
Yeah, this serial cannibal is finally on the loose and we can never think about him again, thankful.
Yeah. So, we're moving right along to the next episode, which I find this episode utterly baffling. It's the episode called Cheer Up Star.
Oh, cheer up. Oh my goodness.
It's the one that
this
has this framing device.
Yes,
That
this
is
one.
bizarre and completely unnecessary. They could have just told the story in order and it would have made just as much sense.
Yeah.
But they decide to start near the end of the story and then like flashback to how they got there.
Yeah.
But like there was no reason to do that.
So the episode that we're talking about has all of this fake tension
yeah,
that
all
is
this
built.
fake tension.
So it starts with Star and Marco running into a shed being like, "Whoa, I really messed up this time. I can't believe it." And it's just like, Marco, what did you do? And he's just like, "Oh, no time to talk. Gotta do this and this. Gotta make some armor. This is some really bad situation we're in right now." and then it's like flashback. What happened? And turns out it was just nothing happened, actually.
Turns out actually no. It was just, and the whole thing they're building up to is just a regular monster attack, which they deal with every day, literally.
Yeah, it's
And
like
who...
so what happened was Star has a crush on a boy and she gives him her number and then she gets sad when he doesn't call her. And then Marco tries to cheer her up by like luring the monsters so she can beat him up and be happy again.
Yes, that is the plot of the episode. But here's the weird thing.
Where'd you what?
I don't understand why they needed this whole framing device for the episode.
Well, it's because they had no original ideas for this episode and they needed some fake tension.
I guess, but I mean, the episode would have made just as much sense if they just told it in order.
Well, that's it. But then it would have just been any old episode where nothing happens and they fight monsters at the end.
Okay, yeah, but that is what happened. But that is what happens in the episode.
That's what happens in the episode. So what they're like, man, so we have no original ideas for this episode. What if we just take the end part and put it at the beginning? That'll fool everyone.
That'll fool everyone. Yeah, and there's no reason for Star and Marco to be running from the monsters.
Yeah, it's like, why are they running?
They can, as they show immediately afterward, they are clearly capable of handling these monsters.
Yeah, and they handle the monsters without any of like the preparations or armor that they made in the shed. Like they just beat them up just like normal. And honestly, Star could just do it on her own because she can generate nuclear explosions on command, but she just doesn't most of the time.
Yeah, and that's the episode basically.
That's it. Nothing else happens.
Oh, we're introduced to this character Oscar, who is not important.
Oscar.
He's the guy that plays the guitar.
Oh yeah,
guitar.
that guy, the guitar.
I
forgot his name was Oscar. Yeah.
He's pretty funny.
I mean, he's got like a funny design and he says
got,
some funny stuff.
bits.
So I'll give Oscar. Oscar's probably my favorite character in the show so far because I like him at all.
Okay, we'll get to more Oscar later then. I hope you're excited. Yeah, nothing happens.
He comes up in a later episode.
After this, we get to Quest By.
Oh yeah, Quest By.
Which is a funny episode in retrospect for me. Because it introduces two ideas this episode. First, we have the idea of this place called Quest By. Which is obviously a pun on Best Buy. Which is this store for like magical items.
Yeah.
And this store does come back a few times throughout the show. They go back to this store. For a variety of reasons.
Finally, Marco can be useful.
Yeah, but the other thing they introduced in the show is the idea that the wand needs to be charged.
Yeah.
This is the opposite of the Quest By, is that it's never addressed again.
Oh,
and
fantastic.
it's not important at all.
That is really annoying. Oh my goodness.
It's just for this episode. So they go to Quest By.
Oh, and whoopsie daisy, Ludo just happens to be there at the exact same time.
And they have a fight, and they find the charger. And the moral of the story is to be organized. I guess.
The moral of the story is that it be organized, except Marco is the one who, messed this all up in the first place by vacuuming up the charger at the beginning.
I do like that bit at the end. It's like, oh, well, I got my new charger and you have a magic vacuum cleaner now.
Yeah. I thought that was not funny because that was retarded.
I thought it was retarded enough to be funny.
It's like, so for one, Star, you don't think you might need a second charger in case you lose it again?
Now she knows where it is.
Yeah, great. Now she knows where it is. So why didn't they immediately know where the charger was? Because the vacuum was flying and floating around.
Well, it wasn't. Until later.
Why wasn't it though? Because in this episode, they take the charger out, put it back in, and then it immediately starts floating around.
That's a good question. But that's not important.
Yeah, completely not important because this show sucks.
Oh yeah, I almost forgot. It also shows like this one, the charging never comes back. But like the little unicorn that's like running on a treadmill inside the wand, that does come back.
Yeah, that looks horrible too.
I think you'll like what they do with that. It's pretty interesting. It's pretty fun.
Yeah, especially when you see like the unicorn when she first opens it up and she's out of power. The unicorn looks horrifying.
Well,
like,
yeah, it's
this is like
it's supposed to be. Like
it's exhausted. Like Star is running this thing to its own death. Like Star, what's wrong with you?
Well, that's what they're implying. They're implying that if they don't find the charger, the unicorn is going to die.
Yeah, Star, why do you have this slave labor in your wand right now? Jeez, no breaks, never stops, just on this treadmill forever.
Yep, that's how
Sounds
it works.
like a good life. Thanks, unicorn.
I'm just remembering what they do later with that unicorn.
Also, what is the difference between this unicorn and like the million unicorns that she's like shot out of her wand?
Well, this one's tiny. And
why didn't she? If she needed a charger, why didn't she just go tiny unicorn and make a tiny unicorn, take the old one out and put the new one in?
This unicorn is obviously special.
Oh, clearly.
Don't be silly. But that's what happens in this episode.
Nothing.
We're gonna move right along to Diaz family vacation.
This episode sucks so bad.
This episode, we sort of get introduced to Star's dad a little bit.
Yeah,
and that's what happens in the episode.
Yeah. This is the episode where I noticed a really weird obsession with like getting eaten in this show. Like a lot of people seem to like get eaten. Like in this episode, they like tear open like the dragon's stomach.
Yeah, I know what. I'm trying to think of another example of this.
Yeah, I had some more examples of this too. I can't think of them off the top of my head, but for some reason, I was looking at this. It's like, man, people get eaten a lot in this show.
I'm trying to think of another time that happens in the episodes we watched. People getting eaten. There's the dragon that we just talked about, obviously.
I don't know. Maybe move on.
Maybe you're an idiot.
I'll give you a detailed list of all the times people get eaten in the show later. But point is, it's really weird. Like man. So Star wants to give the Diaz parents a good anniversary gift, so she takes them to Muni.
Mm-hmm.
But
she's not allowed to be there.
Yeah, she's not allowed to be there.
She's not supposed to have magic scissors.
So instead of doing the smart thing and taking them anywhere else, she just decides to go to the most dangerous part of Muni.
Yeah.
And take these defenseless humans there. Great work, Star. Putting everybody's lives in danger.
Yeah. That's what happens in this episode.
Yeah, great.
This episode is boring. Nobody cares.
Yeah. So the thing we learned about Star's dad. So he's not actually a really boring lecture guy, like introduced at the beginning. He doesn't actually give really boring lectures about throne posture. He actually fights dragons that are already dead.
And fighting dragons is really good for throne posture.
Yeah, it's really great for throne posture.
Great he doesn't just fight dragons. He just goes around and fights monsters. That's the thing he does for fun.
Great work.
And I don't know. Later we'll find that Star's dad is actually the less cool of Star's parents.
Really?
Yeah.
Can't wait.
But we'll get to that much later.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I hope so, because Star's parents are far and away the most unlikable characters in the whole series.
I thought that was Marco.
Well, that's a good question. I mean,
Marco
is more annoying because you have to look at him more. But if Star's parents were in the show as much as Marco is, they'd be worse.
That's another thing about this, the sort of idea of the show is that Star's going to Earth so she can learn how to use her magic. And the idea is her parents just well, we can't have her wreck this place. Let's send her to another dimension so she can just destroy everything over there.
Yeah, great. Really responsible
Star's parents. Thanks.
Right. Yeah. This is the episode where this is also the episode where there's this really weird tone where, at the end, we have to assume that, Marco's parents are dead. Like, Marco's like, we gotta get to the lower intestine before they're digested. I'm just like, this is horrible. What?
I thought that was pretty funny.
No, it was not funny. And like, Star's just like, man, I really messed up this time.
Start playing the sad music.
Yeah, it's just like really, really awful, sad music. It's just like,
I don't know. I think the show was in on the joke.
I don't know what the joke was.
The joke was they're dead.
That's not funny though.
It's hilarious.
They've just been brutally murdered, basically by Star.
But yeah, that's it for this episode.
Yeah.
We're gonna move along.
Please,
we're getting there. Brittany's party. Nothing happens in this episode either.
Yeah.
Moving right along.
One real quick thing. I hate these Brittany characters in shows. I hate them. They make no sense.
Like I said at the beginning, we're establishing a lot of characters in this first season,
and they're all horrible.
And 75% of them are not relevant at all to the rest of the show. And Brittany is one of these characters.
Brittany is one of these characters. It's just like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, who is this character? Like, a complete horrible person who is somehow also popular. Like, this isn't how human interaction works. Like, you don't like somebody because they're rich. Like, this doesn't happen. Like,
she's
even
the captain of the cheerleading team.
Yeah, because she bought it.
That's what makes her the fun character.
Yeah. And it's like, at this birthday party, which sucks, like really sucks, and like everybody's just like, but it's still like the event of the year for some reason. Like, why? Who would ever like care to go? Like, nobody would want to go.
Was it this episode where like Star's walking through the halls and like being popular basically?
Yeah.
I thought that was funny.
I mean, I didn't think it was funny, but...
Well, I thought the one joke where there's got the one girl who's like, Star, I put pictures of you all over the inside of my locker.
Yeah,
it's like, that's weird, because I just put pictures of you all over the inside of my locker. I thought that was pretty good.
It was okay. It was kind of a funny gag, I guess, but...
I will say this. This one character, her name is Starfans, like 64 or something.
Okay.
And she comes back later.
Oh my God.
She's pretty.
I hope she plays a vital role in the plot to come.
I won't say she plays a vital role, but she does come back. Starfan 64. That's her name.
Starfan 64. Is that like her username?
That's her username, and that's just what she's called.
All right. Whatever. Moving on from this horrible episode.
Yeah. All right. We got another episode. Followed by that is the best episode of this bunch, followed by the worst episode of this bunch, in my opinion. We got Muberty.
Yes, Muberty. I believe I identified this as the best episode when I first went through this show.
Yeah.
So this is one of the
ones... You hadn't quit by this point.
Yeah, I hadn't quit by this point. I'll tell you when I quit. But yeah, this is the one where this is one of those animation spikes that I talked about, where everything looks a little bit better than it usually does.
Yep, that's definitely true.
Yeah, so the plot of the episode is that Star is going through puberty, which makes like purple hearts appear all over her body.
Yep.
Which, makes perfect sense, I guess, but whatever.
It's just what happens to, what do they call them? Humans.
Humans.
Okay. I think that's good.
Yeah.
Moving right along. But yeah, Star's going through puberty, which is a thing that happens, apparently. And... she turns into this crazy butterfly thing.
So wait.
I really like.
Before we get to that, real quick. So she's like like these purple hearts appear on her skin and fall off, like flake off, like disgustingly, like they're skin flakes.
Yep.
And then she is enveloped, and eventually they grow at such a rate that she's enveloped in like a chrysalis of these purple heart things, which is triggered by like seeing boys apparently.
Yeah, because it's.
Yeah, it's because, it's puberty. You get it. Yeah, like, ha ha ha.
Good joke, guys.
But she emerges from the chrysalis, as you say, as like this butterfly monster.
And I think the butterfly monster looks really cool. It's got like the 6 arms and the wings and the weird hair.
Yeah.
And, like the giant heart-shaped eyes that are like glowing. And it's really... And the way she moves is so weird. I like it. I really like this episode.
Yeah, I can agree. I think the design for Mubertized Star is a lot better than her normal design. And I wish she actually just kept looking like that for the rest of the show, because she would be a lot cooler. So Star goes like super crazy, Superboy crazy,
and starts capturing them in like her weird little nests of spider web.
Yeah, I liked the episode up until about this point when she started like webbing people up, and it's just like, what is she webbing them for? This puberty thing only lasts for like 5 minutes. What is she doing?
Well, yeah, it's And it's not. It's just what she does.
Yeah, it's just we just have to assume that's what she does, but there's no like rationale for it. It's just that's what she does.
That's just what she does.
Which whatever.
Oh, it's a great whatever.
Yeah, at least it looks cool.
It does look cool.
It is by far and away the coolest looking episode in the series so far.
Yeah. But this is just the first thing that I like about this episode. There's another great thing about this episode is we're introduced to a fantastic new character. Actually, two new characters. One of which is fantastic, the other which is okay. We get Glossaric.
Glossaric, hooray.
I love Glossaric.
He's really annoying.
What? Okay. Hold the phone. Now give the phone to me. And I like Glossaric. Glossaric is fantastic, man.
I can sort of see some potential in Glossaric. I can see some potential to be a good character. I just don't think that he was at all funny in this episode. I think there's good jokes you can make, but it's like none of these jokes are funny though.
You don't think "scrape the sides" was a funny joke?
No.
I thought that was hilarious.
Scrape the sides, and it's just like, why doesn't Marco just kill this guy?
Because he's Glossaric.
He's worthless.
Well,
especially since he doesn't do anything this episode.
Interesting note, though. He does appear in previous episodes.
Oh, really?
Yeah, well, he appears...
In the one where the book was in there?
Yeah, well, actually, he appears in the first episode, for, a few seconds when, after Star, it's the very beginning when Star, sets the castle on fire or whatever.
Wow.
And, the parents are, up and they say, she can't handle it, and they send her off. In that moment, you see Glossaric, floating next to them, saying, yeah.
Huh.
And then in the book,
cool.
And then in the book episode, as Star is, turning the pages, he appears... on one of the pages, and then she just turns past him.
Yeah, why didn't she just use him?
Because she doesn't know. He just keeps
she doesn't know about Glossaric.
She hasn't met Glossaric yet, I don't think.
Oh, okay. That's kind of odd. They didn't tell her about Glossaric, even though they clearly knew.
Well, they just... This is funny, because the parents just assume that Glossaric is, We learned this later, that the parents assume that Glossaric is, I guess I don't want to spoil it, so never mind. Alright. The parents assume that Glossaric is, teaching her how to use magic. That's what they assume. That's what they assume is happening on Earth right now.
That makes
Star
sense.
is learning how to. They assume that Star is going through this book, and Glossaric is her teacher. But that's not what's happening at all. Because Glossaric is just not doing that.
Yeah, Glosseric's just lazy. All right, I like Glossaric a little bit more now. He's got a little bit of character to him.
He sort of just does his own thing. And trust me, I think he'll like Glossaric. Soon.
Yeah, maybe he'll be funny later. But
I thought anyway.
Oh yeah, and the other character.
Oh yeah, and then we get Jana.
Oh yeah, random girl number 4.
Random girl number 4, who steals Marco's keys and is just up to no good basically.
Yeah. She steals Marco's keys, and Marco's just grr, shake my fist at you. It's Marco, those are your keys. You need to get those back. How are you gonna get into your house?
He's got more important things on his mind.
Oh yeah, clearly.
Magical butterfly people flying around.
Yeah, so one of the things I didn't like about this episode is that Marco is just useless. Yeah, and that's the lesson that he learns, is that he's useless. And it's just okay, well, why did we follow him? I want to see more of if Marco's not going to do anything of substance anyway, let's get more shots of of Star right now. That's really cool.
What Marco did was introduce us to Glosser.
Yeah, great. That couldn't have been done at any other time. I don't know, when Star was flipping through the book earlier in the previous episode. And it's a bad place to introduce Glossaric, because Glossaric is totally useless in this situation.
Yeah, he just doesn't do anything.
He's actually more than useless. He's a burden.
He's not a burden. He doesn't do anything.
Well, he pretends that he has knowledge, and he won't give it to Marco until he gets him some pudding, and then he doesn't have anything to tell him.
Oh, he just tells him that nature will run its course, basically. So
great.
He knows this the whole time. He knows Marco can't do anything, so he's just using this opportunity to get pudding out of him.
Yeah, great.
And that's the episode. That's what happens.
Yeah.
And Marco, like Glossaric says, Star just returns to normal on her own, and now she has little tiny wings that she can't fly with.
Yeah, little disgusting looking wings. Jeez.
Little baby wings.
They don't look like baby wings. They look like wings that have been torn off.
Well, yeah, they're just like the beginnings of butterfly wings.
I guess. Is that what butterfly wings look like in the beginning? Shards?
I've never looked. But that's just what they look like, alright?
Yeah, but they look horrible. I think Star's a new design, which isn't a new design
Well, no,
because
it's not
her
a new
hair is
design.
covering
It's
it.
just the wing. She just has wings now.
Well, you can say that. Yeah, whatever. It's a change to her design. That doesn't matter at all because her hair is always in front of her wings.
Anyway, but that's pretty much the end of this episode.
Yeah, that's the end of this episode.
We'll move on to my least favorite episode of this whole thing is Pix Topia.
Oh yeah, Pix Topia. Jeez Louise.
But upon rewatching this episode,
I hated it more.
I hated it more.
The second time.
And there was one line in this episode that like I picked up on that I really think resonates with this show a whole lot.
Yeah.
It's when they're about to head off to Pix Topia, and Marco's friends who are there, they say, "Please take us with you. This dimension is so boring." And it's
just like, yeah,
you know what? You're right. This dimension is boring. It is the worst part of this show is just hanging out on Earth doing Earth things, and it's so boring.
So boring.
And the show gets so much better when they don't do that anymore. But for the beginning, it's just it's all on Earth and no one cares.
Yeah, it's like, so Marco and his two dumb friends are making prank calls on the magic mirror.
It's
Very funny.
His two friends, dumb face, and just go die.
just horrible. Two horrible people who deserve to have no friends, and I'm glad that they die. Anyway, so, and then the magic mirror, its service runs out. Ha ha ha, isn't that funny? But anyway, they need to go to Pix Topia to repay their bill, I guess.
Yeah, that's. But things go awry, and they're in a mine.
Yeah, so,
and then
well, here's the thing. So before we get to that real quick. So, once they run out of service or whatever, Star is giving Marco the business, like, "Oh, wow, you messed something up? Wow, you're just like me." And this is horrible for a number of reasons. For one, Marco has messed up many times in this series already. Like, this isn't a new thing for him. He messes up all the time. Like, what? Yeah, this isn't like Star always messes up and Marco cleans up her mess the show. They're both idiots and they both screw stuff up all the time. Like, what?
I don't know what... That's one of the things I hate about this episode. Is I don't understand what they're even trying to say.
It's like... This is
what
like...
What are they going for?
This is indecipherable.
It's like they think they have a moral, but then they don't.
Yeah. And then they go to the pixie place, right? Yeah. And then the pixie's like, "All right, you gotta pay your bill." And then Marco hands him like $5, I guess. And then they have to go to the mines because they don't take cash; they take jewels and gold. Yep. And then Star's like, "Oh wow, Marco, you messed up again." And I was like, "No, Star, you messed up. You should be paying the bill. You are the one who knows how to pay the bill. You're the one who has money because you're a princess. Why is it Marco's job to pay your bill?" Like, I know
because he ran down.
Yeah, he ran down the thing, but he doesn't have any gold and jewels. How is he gonna do it? Star, what are you thinking? This is not Marco's fault that you got put in the mines. So yeah, they can't pay the bill, and then just like every other, I mean, this was really relatable to me when I didn't pay my phone bill. They shoved me in the coal mines, and I had to work off my debt. That makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense, especially since you don't have a phone debt to work off. That doesn't make any sense. They just turn off your service when you run out. You don't owe them anything. You just need to pay more money to get it reactivated. Like, why would you work in the mines? That's actually
absolutely true. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, why would you have to... This isn't... They're acting like they had just... They're like... This is sort of like a play on like, oh, you can't pay your bill at the restaurant. You gotta wash dishes for a little while, right? To pay off your tab. But there's no tab. It doesn't make any sense.
Yep, that's what happens in this episode.
Yeah, so not only do Star and Marco get in there, but Dingus and Dumbass come in there too. And they're just like... And they get enslaved as well. Fantastic. Another thing...
characters are so bad.
Yeah, so another thing that doesn't make any sense. So they're all like, "I'm not gonna mine. This is ridiculous." Star's like, "I'm gonna use magic." And then it's like, "Oh, wait. Crystals block magic. Oh, now we're really messed up. We've got this one pixie guarding us that's literally 3 inches tall. Just punch him in the face and leave."
Right. Maybe there's some moral things against punching.
Star has no morals.
I couldn't really finish that. But,
Star is the most immoral person I've ever met. She has no regard for other people and their safety. Star will use violence at any opportunity to get what she wants. And then they've got this little laser whip, which does nothing. It's just like, chew, chew. It's like, oh, it's very scary.
Yeah, this episode is really dumb. Nothing happens. Ferguson and Alfonso, that's their names, I think.
Oh, okay, cool.
I just remembered.
So, yeah, but
they both die. I don't know what happens.
No, they don't both die. Ferguson doesn't die.
Oh, yeah, Alfonso dies.
Yeah, so Ferguson gets, like, taken away to the queen. And then the queen wants to marry him. Oh, what a twist. He looks so delicious. And then, they fight their way out of the mine in the dumbest chase sequence I've ever seen in my whole life because they could just beat him up like they do later. And then when they get it back up to the top where the queen is and where they're about to rescue Ferguson, Ferguson's like, hey guys, I'm about to marry the queen. Blah, blah, blah. And they're like, no. And then, like I've always been saying, they just beat up all the guards like they could have done at the beginning.
Yep.
And then they leave, I guess.
Yep.
Except they leave Alfonso there to get married to the queen because Alfonso's retarded. But then Star tells us at the end, oh, he wasn't going to marry Ferguson. He was just going to eat him. So, canonically, Alfonso got eaten by the Pixies.
That's what happened. Yeah.
That's what happened. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. They just left him behind. Like, it's especially funny because nobody, like, remembers that Alfonso was there. And they just forget about him completely.
No, that's not true. Ferguson's all like, hey, where's Alfonso? And then they cut to him back in Pix Topia. But it is funny that they just sort of leave him.
Yeah, and they're just like, well,
oh well.
But yeah, I mean, we no big loss, right, guys?
Yeah.
Once again, proving that Star and Marco are the cruelest human beings who have ever lived with no sense of empathy.
I mean,
but
I feel like they're
But I do relate to them a lot in this situation.
Yeah, I feel like maybe they also don't like these characters.
Yeah, maybe.
Because they don't really... I mean, obviously they do show up. They're just there in the background occasionally.
Oh, is Alfonso in the background anymore?
I'm trying to remember.
If he is, I'm gonna be thoroughly disappointed because him dying is like the only cool thing that happens in the whole show.
Oh, I remember this one episode much later. That's really bad. But
or if they find him again and it turns out he is like the Pixie King now, I'm gonna kill myself. This is horrible. like Star was wrong and they weren't actually gonna eat him and she actually did want to marry him. Oh my. That would be so horrible.
Okay, let's just move.
We'll move on from this.
I don't want to talk about this episode anymore.
I agree. Awful. I agree that this is the worst episode.
You know what? So here's the thing: if you're gonna go watch this show after listening to this, maybe we'll give you like a list of the episodes you should and shouldn't watch, just to skip a few.
Yeah, just I mean, I wouldn't blame you for just skipping this entire first part. Like this in like every episode.
There are a few episodes in here that I would
blame
say
you for just skipping
you should watch, but obviously you disagree with that.
Yeah.
But we're going to move on to the last 3 episodes. We got Lobster Claws, which if I recall is the episode that you stopped watching last time you tried to watch.
So around like maybe like a year and a half ago, I picked up the show and I watched to about Lobster Claws and I could not go on because man... after this like 1-2 punch of like the Pixie episode and the Lobster Claws episodes, I'm like, this is the worst show I've ever seen in my whole life.
This is weird to me because, I mean, Lobster Claws isn't my favorite episode, but I don't see how it's that bad.
Yeah, so it's like a close second to the Pixie episode in my mind of how horrible. Like, I don't know if it's quite as bad because, I mean, at least it doesn't have those 2 idiots like running around for no reason. But so the plot of the episode is that, generic beat up, blah, 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 they beat up the monsters. But then one monster gets left behind and fired by Ludo because he sucks so bad.
Which is funny because all of these monsters are terrible.
Yeah, I mean...
they're just awful.
I wouldn't call it funny, I would call it stupid. But, so it leaves them this lobster monster behind. And, And then Marco and Star have to teach him how to be good. Well, Marco does. Star's a huge racist and doesn't believe he can be good. And at the end of the episode, we learned that actually Star's right. You should be racist against monsters. Racism is good.
See, okay, so that's the thing about this episode that gets me. That is like I said, it's not the worst episode, but it is like. It's really funny that you call Star racist because that is a thing.
Yeah.
In the
boy,
in this show.
I can't wait. Man, I love racism metaphors where the racism is completely justified.
Okay, see,
those are great.
We'll get to it. It's not exactly racism, actually. It's more of we'll get to it.
Well, yeah, it's speciesism, I guess.
No, that's not what I mean. But it's later in the show.
Yeah.
But like this whole thing with Star and monsters is a thing. And this is the episode that sort of introduces it, but it introduces it in the worst possible way, where like, actually no, this monster just is kind of evil, and it just is.
Yeah, it's like.
I mean, we have that moment at the end where it's like, oh, maybe it's good, maybe it's evil, maybe it's good, maybe it's evil.
Yeah, but first of all, that doesn't make any sense because he has shown no spark of goodness throughout the whole episode. He's just been wantonly murdering and destroying, like. Oh yeah, here's another part where things get eaten. This thing likes to eat babies and stuff.
Oh yeah. Okay. Hold on.
But whatever. Moving on. Yeah. So this crab monster, which by any logical person needs to be put down immediately, like needs to be destroyed. Marco's like, no way, he really can be good for no reason except for like he's crying and that he says that he can be good, which
he just
just
feels bad for him.
Proves that Marco is a gullible idiot. But whatever.
Oh, and Star is like obviously the cynical who sees through.
Oh yes, and floor. Star is now the cynical person who sees through the facade now, even though she's at all other times like taken everything at face value. Like, okay, cool.
Yeah, that's another weird thing about this episode because Star seems like the kind of person who'd be like, okay, we can try to teach you to be good, but
and
she's
then
just
Marco seems like the type of person who'd be like, no, we can't trust him.
Like literally 2 episodes from now. We have a very funny thing that is like the reverse of this, actually.
Great.
But we'll get to that.
Love consistent characterization. My favorite.
But like in this episode, Lobster Claws, he sucks at being good. So Star and Lobster Claws concoct this plan to get Lobster Claws rehired by Ludo. And it goes wrong because Lobster Claws just like takes the wand. And they have the moment where we're like, oh no, he's going to give it to Ludo. But like...
That he doesn't for some reason.
Well, because like Star was like sort of, despite the fact that they were trying to become enemies again, they were working together.
Yeah, but they were doing that the whole episode.
Yeah, they were. But
he never showed any hesitation to do any of the horrible things that he did. Remember when he's like, see, look, he can't mess this up. I'm not taking my eyes off him for 1 second. And then the entire town is on fire. Yeah. Like, this is a horrible, horrible person who needs to be killed immediately. Like, I mean, like I said earlier, all of these monsters, like, Stark could just kill them and save herself a lot of trouble. Especially since she's already racist against them.
It's just really bizarre because, like, they try to start it out with this, oh, he just doesn't know right from wrong. But, like, he just does, like, even after saying, no, you shouldn't hurt or eat people, you shouldn't do that. Even after that, he still just goes around doing that.
Yeah.
So, it's not...
So, it turns out, no, he actually is just inherently evil.
Yeah, that's the problem with this episode. He's just a jerk.
Yeah, but what the real clincher that really made me, like, drop this show like a rock when I first watched this episode was the complete circularity of this episode. At the beginning, we are exactly, precisely where we are at the end. Like, we are at the same location. We are at the same character crossroads. Nothing has changed.
That's not true.
It's worthless.
At the very end, Star is like, maybe there really was a little bit of good in it.
Even though there clearly wasn't.
Even though there clearly wasn't. As we see.
Yeah, he doesn't even give the thing to Star. Marco has to, like, take it out of his hands.
Has to, like, kick him in the face.
Yeah.
And Ludo has that line. It's like, I always forget about the Karate Boy.
Yeah, great. One quick thing. I think I remember, like, in maybe I don't remember what episode it was, but Marco mentions he's like a green belt or something.
Yeah, he's a green belt.
So he's not even good. He's not even good at karate.
Apparently not.
but he still manages to destroy monsters that are like 4 times his size.
Yeah, but you know,
that's what karate is works best against is people that are like, you know, that weigh like 400 pounds more than you.
It's very powerful karate, man.
Yeah,
don't doubt the power of karate.
Human karate just happens to be super effective against monsters from Muni for some reason.
Yes, of course. Anyway, that's Lobster Claws.
That's Lobster Claws.
I didn't find it that bad. It's a weird introduction to like another concept this show goes into better later.
Yeah.
We'll move along to another episode that is another baffling episode that I liked the first half, but then they just didn't have an ending. It was Sleep Spells.
Oh yeah, Sleep Spells. This one was really horrible actually.
Really?
Yeah, this one was just really bad. Like some horrible just like inconsistencies and like just like you said, like I just baffled throughout the whole thing. Like, what am I even supposed to be looking at right now? So like Marco wakes up in the living room's a jungle and he's like, oh, Star must have done this, and then Star denies doing it. And for one thing, Star is a complete idiot. Like, of course you did this. Like, nobody else could possibly do this. Like, come on, Star. You're stupid. I hate to break this to you, Star. Your IQ is like 50. I don't know what to tell you. But anyway, it turns out she's doing it in her sleep. Big surprise.
Mm-hmm.
Ha ha. Yeah. And then Marco decides to be a psychologist for her.
Yeah, he gets what is it, like glasses, jacket, book,
Yeah.
Marco a PhD.
Yeah.
and that's the first half of this episode is basically just Marco trying to, but then they have this one joke
Yeah.
that I think that just got me every single time. Was that when like Marco was like trying to explain psychology to Star.
It's like karate for your brain.
Yeah, it's like karate for brain. It's like, and as she's describing, it's like, oh yeah, we have something like that back on Muni, and it's just like a 5-second clip of a guy getting launched out of a catapult by a guy like dressed as a doctor. And I thought that was hilarious.
I mean, that is like kind of funny. It is just kind of a non sequitur though, because I mean that's nothing like what Marco described. But I mean, it is kind of funny.
The joke is that. That's what they do with crazy people.
Yeah, I get it, but that's not what Marco said. Like it doesn't relate to what Marco said at all. Like this is like she's like, and now she's happy about it. Like we have something like that back on Muni. Maybe I'll get launched out of a catapult too.
I don't know. I just thought it was really funny.
It's kind of funny. Like I said,
I just remember when I first watched it, I was just like, what? And I had to rewatch it to understand what was happening.
Yeah, so Marco gives her the Rorschach test, and as it turns out, Star's dreams are caused by her crippling, like her mother's crippling over obsession, like with her, like her mother's crippling overbearingness.
Her sort of perceived overbearingness of her mother,
which also doesn't make any sense because
she hasn't appeared once.
Yeah, because her mom is clearly not overbearing because she sent her off to another dimension. Like, I mean, that's not usual. That's not the usual like thing of an overbearing mom.
But there is another thing, is just the pressure of one day being queen.
Yeah, pressure that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah,
I wish they had just kept that and like dropped the mom thing because it makes no sense.
Well, yeah, she just perceives that as coming from her mother because she is the queen. Yeah, I don't know if you noticed this, but before that whole Rorschach test thing, like they have her do a painting.
Oh yeah,
and in the painting is like. It's got, like, a 3-headed dog that just has, like, Ludo and some monsters' faces on it. And, like, Star's in the middle, and she's being strangled by a snake that has the head of her mom.
Oh, I didn't notice that it had the head of her mom.
Yeah,
that's cool,
so that's in there, and I thought that was pretty clever detail.
Yeah, very clever.
But then after that happens, basically, they had this idea for the first half of the episode. But then they just like, well, we don't know how to end this, so we're just going to throw a monster.
They needed to introduce a villain, and man, do they introduce a villain this time. Truly, a villain for the history books. The Face Stealer.
The face-stealing purple elephant lady.
Yeah, so apparently this is a runaway princess from St. Olga's or whatever.
Yeah.
And she needs Star. She's going to steal Star's face so they can switch faces.
Mm-hmm.
And then Star will go to St. Olga's instead of her.
Sound plan.
Wow,
Makes
yeah,
sense.
perfect sense. So what I can at least say for this is at least they laugh at her for when they tell her this plan, because, man, this person is stupid. Like, this person needs to be, like, slapped in the face. Like, wow, what are you doing?
Yeah, but either way,
it just comes completely out of nowhere too. There's no like setup for this or anything. She's just like they're doing the sleep spell thing, like she's doing spells in her sleep, and then they whoa, then they've got this elephant lady.
They imply that the whole thing with like her having like stress about her mom was not actually the reason she was doing this. It was because she was fighting off this face stealer in her sleep.
In her sleep.
So
besides the fact that actually makes a lot less sense. Like the explanation makes, so for one, she's fighting him and she somehow got downstairs to turn it into a jungle, which makes no sense.
Yep. That doesn't make any sense.
And then also what makes no sense is that she's better at fighting her in her sleep than she is when she's awake. Because when she's awake, she gets captured.
Yep. And Marco has to save her using psychology.
Yeah.
Except it doesn't work, so he just throws the book
at her. Very funny, guys.
I thought that was clever.
It would have been hilarious if I hadn't seen it coming from a million miles away. Like, come on.
No, it's just the shortness. It's just like there's no like build up. He just goes like whoosh, and it just hits her in the face.
Yeah, I mean, maybe the execution is okay, but I saw the joke. Like, as soon as he pulled out like the psychology stuff, he's gonna throw the book at her. Like, cause I was gonna be like, this is not gonna work. He's not gonna be able to talk her down. He's gonna throw the book at her. Also, this is a very strange. I mean, maybe he just hit her in his weak spot, but I mean, you get hit with one book and now you're like knocked out. Wow, lady, you got like a glass skull or something.
Yeah, but that's not really important.
Not really important. Because this episode is completely unimportant.
Yeah, well, the first half of the episode, like I said, I thought that was interesting. I thought it had some funny moments, but the second half was just like, I don't know, we have to end this episode somehow.
Yeah, it's just like, come on, let's do it.
It's just some like weird stuff. It's just no one cares. And so we're moving on to the final episode, finally, of this series that we're doing. Unless you want to talk about the next one.
I don't really care anymore. We've been talking for a while.
We have been talking for a while.
Blood Moon Ball.
Yeah, which I think is a pretty good halfway point for the season, even though it's not.
I can see why you put this as the ending point, I guess.
Yeah. And in this episode, we're introduced. Well, we've been introduced before, but we're sort of for the first time we meet this new character, Tom.
He had a cameo earlier, but
he's in the intro.
And he's in the intro. Yeah, that too. Yeah, the horrible intro.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Tom is a demon.
Tom is a demon. And he wants to take Star to the Blood Moon Ball.
Yeah.
And he's Star's ex-boyfriend.
Yeah, great. Perfect.
And Tom is a character who I actually really grow to like later in the show.
Really? Okay.
I think he's really funny and really...
I mean, Tom, he's not a horrible character, I guess. Yeah. I like how he's got like his anger issues that he's trying to work through. That's kind of funny.
And he's got like this totally normal dude who's his like anger management guy.
He's got his anger management guy. Like Brian, I think his name
Brian.
is or something.
And, and basically, and that, like we said, this sort of weird switch from the last episode where Star is going to give him another chance, but Mark was like, oh no, this guy's a demon. What? We can't trust him. And
it turns out he's completely right. But once again, it turns out that the racist guy is completely right. I'm getting a weird signals from this show. I think... so let's take her to Blood Moon Ball. She says yes for some reason.
She just wants to give him another chance, I guess.
I guess, but I don't know why she wants to date a demon anyway.
Well, it's not like he's basically just a dude.
I get
who has magic firepower.
A dude who can go insanely angry at any point in time. Yeah,
that's presumably why they broke up.
Yeah, that's presumably.
Which is why Star's willing to give him another chance with this whole anger management thing. We're like, he's trying.
So
apparently.
Yeah. So one thing, Star is like 14 when this show starts. How old were they when they were dating?
I don't know.
Like 12?
Was it like, I don't know. Was it like 13?
Yeah, 13. Okay, whatever. It's possible, but the timeline is a little bit weird. Also, when did they... Also, when did they meet? Because so we see that he lives in the underworld.
Yeah.
But is it the underworld of Muni or the underworld of Earth?
Well, it's like another dimension, I think.
Oh, is it just like another dimension?
I'm pretty sure it's just like...
It's kind of weird that they go down, though. I guess it's just visual.
Yeah, it's
shorthand. Okay.
I'm
buy that.
I'm pretty sure it's just another dimension. I'm not...
Well, they never
100%
use the scissors to get there.
That's true. Well, they go there from Earth.
Yeah,
so.
they go there from Earth. Yeah, but it's like, is it like deep underneath the Earth's crust? Is it like just a different dimension that you can get to from Muni or from Earth?
I don't know. I think they just have. I'm pretty sure it's just another dimension.
Yeah, it's just a very generic hell, which is one of the things I don't like about this episode.
Well, that was actually another thing that I found funny about this episode was the whole idea that Tom is trying to like make this thing like less violent. So
yeah, which especially doesn't make any sense because Star is all about violence. She loves violence. Thing. Why would he tone it down?
I don't know why I don't know. That is a weird...
Star hates boring parties that you just go to and stand around and talk to people. Like, what? Completely out of character, once again.
Well, not out of character for Star, I guess maybe... But is it out of character for Tom?
I don't know.
He's just we don't know much about him.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe he drinks lead paint every morning.
Yeah, but that one joke where it's just like the skeleton and the guy like attacking the skeleton.
Yeah.
It's like, if you want to turn Blood Moon Ball into a greeting card holiday, go ahead. Which one of you said that? I thought it was pretty funny.
Yeah, okay.
You don't sound convinced.
Yeah, I mean, I just felt like I felt like that joke could have been funny, but it was executed so poorly.
I thought it was executed pretty
I don't think like the voice actors really knew what they were doing. I just didn't laugh.
Oh, well. I don't know. So basically, what happens in this episode is, let's see, Tom wants to dance with Star because of the magical properties of the Blood Moon.
So yeah, once again, turns out that Marco is completely right, and he's trying to bond their souls.
Whatever that means.
Yeah, whatever that means.
But then Marco follows her down, and they dance under the Blood Moon Ball.
Wow! Oh my! So like I said, I dropped it at Lobster Claws last time, so I hadn't seen this episode before. And man, was I very, very disappointed that this happened, because I was hoping, like I didn't have much hope that Star and Marco wouldn't end up as a couple. But boy, oh boy, was I hoping that anything else would happen. But no, now their souls are bonded or whatever.
I think there are going to be parts of this show later that are you are not going to like, my friend.
Great. So the problem with Star and Marco is that they have nothing in common and they shouldn't even really be friends at all. Like, let alone...
Marco's just so boring.
Yeah, Marco is the most boring human being in the history of the world. Like, why would you ever want to date him?
Yep.
Why would you ever want to be friends with him?
Yep. He's just a boring guy. And that's it.
Yeah. That's it. So they dance under a star, under the blood moon light or whatever it was. Tom goes really crazy. Angry. Tom goes crazy. He goes 0 days.
Like freezes him.
Yeah, freezes
him. Ice.
And then Star is mad at Marco at the end for some reason.
Well, he was just interrupting their little dance or whatever.
Yeah. So here's the thing, though. It doesn't make any sense. So at the very beginning, Star's like, you weren't invited. You can't go to the Blood Moon Ball. Oh, you mean like invitation has ever stopped you before? Oh yeah, just like how you were invited to Britney's party. Oh yeah.
Oh no.
We've
caught the show in a logical contradiction.
Yeah. Wow, Star really cares about being invited to parties now. I'll remember episode 2 when Marco wasn't invited to go with her and Magic Ponyhead, but she dragged him along anyways against his will.
Against his will. That's just like a reverse problem, though. We're getting out of hand.
No, look, what I'm saying is, like, what should have happened is Star should have been like, yeah, I'll go to the Blood Moon Ball with you, but Marco has to come with me. That would have made so much more sense.
Yeah, I mean,
instead of Star just randomly not wanting him to come for some reason.
Yeah, I mean, I guess because this was like, it was sort of like a romantic thing, as opposed to just like a friend thing.
So this Blood Moon Ball that only happens once every so and so years, right? She knows all about it and how it's going to be a romantic thing. Like, how would she even know about anything about the Blood Moon Ball?
She doesn't know anything about the Blood Moon Ball except that Tom, her ex-boyfriend, invited her.
So what? You can go to a dance without having a date. It's fine.
I mean, I don't think that's the point, though. I think that's what she was doing.
Yeah, but it's stupid because
Like, we don't know about the relationship between Tom and Star before
I guess
this
not,
episode, so...
It doesn't make any sense. I mean,
I don't know. I just see in this episode, she decided, okay, I'll give Tom another chance. And then, like, Marco shows up and, like, sort of causes Tom to go insane.
I guess.
and
if that's all it takes to set him off, though, I mean,
yeah.
Marco's definitely in the right here, and she shouldn't be around him.
That's true. But like, as I said, Tom does come back later, and he is a fun character. He's an interesting character that we'll get to know over time.
I'm sure.
But that was the Blood Moon Ball and all the episodes we're covering for this episode of the Star vs. the Forces of Evil podcast.
Yeah.
We'll cover the rest of season 1 in the next episode, and some more plot things are going to happen in the next...
thank good. Any plot things will happen, hopefully.
Yes, especially with the season finale. We'll get there. But for now, that was this episode. But there is a few little things I want to talk... because this episode doesn't have a whole lot going on, it sort of made me want to talk about the origin of this show. Because the creator, Darren... I can't pronounce the last name. Darren McFay or whatever. Originally pitched this show. This is how it was originally pitched. But like the pitch was modified over time, so it would be accepted as a show about Star, a girl who really likes anime.
Really?
And is sort of imagines herself to be a magical princess.
Huh.
And Marco, the character Marco, is a guy who's sort of her rival, actually, as opposed to her best friend, who really likes Dragon Ball Z. And Star is really into
Sailor Moon.
Sailor Moon, yeah.
Yeah, I can already...
Yeah. You can already feel the vibes?
No, yeah, I get that.
And that was the original pit. And like Ponyhead, the character, was her one of her imaginary friends.
Oh.
And so it's just so baffling to think about how that show became this show.
Yeah,
because
wow. That would have been a much better show.
I mean, maybe.
It's a much better pitch than this one.
It is a better...
It's a better premise.
It's a better premise. But like, as we go on, the stuff about Star and on Earth is the most boring part of this show, that's for sure. So obviously that's like a holdover from this older version of the show that is no longer part of it. So it's really interesting to just try to think about how that show became this show. It's really weird.
Yeah, I mean, well, somebody had a fun idea that they wanted to make, and then they brought it to the studio. They said no, so they chopped off a bit, and then they brought it back, and they rejected that too, so they chopped up another bit. Repeat, and then, top it up a little bit more, rearrange the bits, bring it to the thing.
Yeah.
And then finally they got accepted.
Yeah, and there's just a lot of stuff in the show that you can see. Like, there's entire episodes that are just complete waste of time.
Yeah.
And it's, like, really weird, because, as we find later, this show does have a story to tell. It just isn't interested in telling it in the first season for some reason.
Yeah, it's like... I mean, it's like I said earlier, I mean, from what you can learn about the characters... You can just skip all these episodes. There's nothing to see.
Yeah, not all of them. I think there are some episodes.
Which one? Which episode? Name this episode where you learn something important about a character.
Well, you gotta watch the first episode.
No, you don't.
Yes, you do.
You can read...
That's how you get the premise.
You can read, like, the back of the DVD and get all the information you would get from the first episode.
Let's look at these episodes. Let's see.
Yeah.
I like Muberty.
Yeah, so Muberty looks good, but it's not actually vital. Like, does it ever come up again?
It is important.
Alright, whatever. I'll give you Muberty, because I already like that episode as a rule anyway, so.
Let's see.
I'll give you Muberty.
What else is important? The Blood Moon Ball is important. That's not all of them, though.
Whatever.
Like I said, Sleep Spells has some interesting stuff in the first half, and they just decided we don't know what to do for the second half, so here comes the rest of the episode.
But I mean, it's like, do you really need Star to tell you that she's, like, pressured by her overbearing mother? Like, just come out and say it. Like, come on. That can't be a little subtler.
The show does have a problem with subtlety.
Hey, okay, you know what? I'm gonna be fair here. I'm gonna be really fair here.
Okay, let's hear it.
There was a little bit of subtlety in Blood Moon Ball that I liked, which was when Marco is not underground and, like, he's just, like, you know, doing his Day of the Dead thing, I guess. Because Marco's Mexican, in case you didn't know. He's Mexican. Just in case you hadn't gotten that yet from watching the show. I mean, we didn't mention it, but geez, did this show like to go on about, like, all the different Mexican things he does.
Just that one episode.
Nah.
I'm trying to think of another example.
Every single, like, interaction with Marco's family is like, man, look how
Marco's
Mexican
family.
these people
It does get a little funny there.
Yeah,
like,
okay,
what
but
are you talking about?
Yeah, so he's like sad, eating nachos and stuff, and he's just sitting up there, and in the frame that you see him, there's the little bell that Star used to get down, like, summon the little chariot that brings you down, and it never shows Marco going like, what? She left her bell here? Lol. It's just him sitting there being bored. He doesn't even look at it.
Yeah, he does.
No, he doesn't.
Yeah, he does.
I looked at his eyes. He doesn't even look at it.
Well, not in that scene, but a little bit later. Like,
did I just miss that scene then?
He just, like, he has a thing where he's like sitting there being bored, and then he glances over and he notices the bell.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. He just glances up. I don't remember the glance, but it was just like, he doesn't. There's no big thing where he's like, it doesn't show him going down. Okay. Yeah, it's just implied.
He doesn't say aloud to the camera, like, look directly to the camera and say, "Oh,
wow,
look at this! Star left her bell." It doesn't do that.
This bell means I can get down to the underworld too. Thank goodness.
It just shows him, like, sort of look at it, and then, like, the next time you see him, he's already down there.
Yeah, that was pretty good. I appreciated that. Only because I was really worried that they were gonna do that other thing.
Okay.
At least they didn't do that.
What were we doing before you brought that up? I guess we were looking at the episodes, and I was trying to tell you. All right, here are the episodes that I like from this part of the season. That if you're a person who's never watched Star vs. the Force of Evil, and which is fair, it's not the best show. I like it. I have some biases towards it for whatever reason. I enjoy it. I enjoy what it's become. I haven't watched any of the new ones yet. I'm just gonna wait on that until they all come out, because that's, I don't know. I'm not so into the show that I need to watch everything as soon as it comes out. But we'll get there with the podcast pretty quick, I think. But all right, so go ahead and watch the first two, Star Comes to Earth and Party with the Pony, because introducing characters, introducing things. I like School Spirit. Obviously, you don't. I think that's a good episode. Monster Arm is a good episode. You can skip the other exchange student. You can skip... I mean, I guess you can watch Quest By just because it has a location that appears later in the show.
a location that I think is really bad, actually. Now that I didn't mention this while we were going, but Quest By is like a really horribly, like... And when I say horribly designed, I don't mean like... You know, like, for the customers. I mean, like, from the perspective of a show.
I mean, it's just a purple
maze. It's just like a maze of purple boxes with nothing interesting going on, basically. I mean,
it's got the one Sphinx in there for some reason.
Yeah, it's got like it's completely, like, schizophrenic in how it's presented. Like, there's a Sphinx riddle for some reason. Like, because it's Quest.
Yeah,
but
that's it.
But it's just a really boring location.
Yeah, okay, moving on. Watch Muberty. Muberty is a good episode. I like Sleep Spells and Blood Moon Ball. So if you want to catch up, go ahead and watch those episodes.
Yeah.
Just the ones I mentioned there. You don't really need to watch... I mean, you can watch Lobster Claws, but apparently you find that one worse than I do.
Lobster Claws is infuriating. I would not watch Lobster Claws. And especially since the lobster guy has probably the most annoying voice out of any of the monsters.
Well, he never shows up again. So.
Yeah, thank goodness.
Lucky you.
He gets eaten later.
By Pixie.
By Pixie. No, probably by Ludo, actually.
No, fine. And that's the first episode of the Star versus the Forces of Evil podcast. gonna have to think of a better name.
Yeah, maybe it's Me versus the Forces of Star podcast.
Me versus Star versus the Forces of Evil.
No.
Me versus you versus the
Yes.
Star versus of Evil.
No, it'd be me versus you and the Forces of Evil. How about it's me? How about it's us versus the Forces of Evil, aka Star?
We'll workshop that.
Yeah, well, we'll get that. We'll get that all fixed up. But yeah, I think that's all I pretty much have to say about that.
That's all I got to say about these episodes. Like I said, the show will get better. Like, maybe you won't think it will get that much better, but it will get better than this.
Yeah. All right. Take your word for it. Thanks for watching the Bespoke Podcast.
See you next time.
See you next time.